Hi, I wanted to make a tier list for events. Making a tier list for events is a lot harder than for champions or commons because uh, the unit the units have stats and you can just kind of map out the stats, and maybe the ability is a little situational, but that's not where big the value is. Or the events are like big abilities in a way. So their power level is very variable depending on a lot of on the board state. They can pay off very big or just be unplayable. So it's very hard to measure them, but after a lot of playing, I have constructed a mental idea of how good an event is, and you can especially if you're not so advanced, you can use this information sometimes to understand how important it is to hold an event or just wait for the right situation. Like for events that are very strong, you need to try to hold them to try to get that value. Where other bands are very situational, unless you can really figure out where you're going to use it and how, you probably are fine just discarding them on the spot. So, having that in mind, let's move on with my tier list. I'm going to on the right, as you see, I'm going to start faction by faction because it's going to be easier for me to show the events. So you don't have to remember what they do exactly. I hopefully you can read the cards. Uh, if not, I will just well, I guess you can check them yourself if you don't remember. So anyway, for the first event, I'm going to check Blast. I think Blast is a very it's a very well, like all events, like I said, it's very situational, but it's more situational than others. I think Blast can be extremely powerful in the right situations because it can pay off just with the damage alone. So sometimes you can do like 3 damage, and if you're just paying 2 magic for 3 damage, that's pretty good. I mean, it's not game winning, but in the right situation, it just can pay off. And the fact that you can move the things around is just extra value. Uh, but yeah, in general, if you were going to play Blast, is to you get that extra value from movement, moving things around. This is especially strong versus champs. Sometimes just blasting a champ away, like several squares. It's very powerful. Um, but then, like versus sneak, sometimes you just use a blast and you just trample like 2 commons and kill one and just mess with all the whole formation. With that said, because it costs 2 magic, right? Every event costs the card you play plus the magic. It's not as despite even when you do all that, it's not that you're getting so much value. And because it's so situational and expensive and requires so much, I will play them on. I think it's a balanced event, but I think it's slightly weak. It's a slightly weak event. I think it could be. I wish it could do maybe be cheaper and more restrictive or be a little more powerful, but it's overall an event I'm fine playing. And when you have it in hand, you know that there are so many moves to do with it. That's very strong. Obviously, there are other uses of Blast, but I'm not going to. This is not a strategy videos. I'm not going to go very in depth to everything you can do with an event. I think the events are so complex that you can talk. I make a very small. I will consider doing that. Very small, short videos about every event and many situations. I think you can do that with every event because they're very like you can do a lot with them. Anyway, moving on to the next event of the Vanguard's Hypnotic Call, which I think is the weakest event. I think for players that I think it's under power. I wish it gives a little more attack to Takulu. For anyone to plays Hypnotic Call, you know, you hold it in hand and it just seems so hard to find a situation to play it. Often you just discard it because yeah, you know, it's not easy, but in the right situation, obviously, like many events, can be very brutal. Just sometimes removing a blocker, sometimes just moving that champion or common in the right position to kill easily. So it's a useful spell. I was considering moving it on slightly weak. But overall, I feel like I'm discarding this event too often because I understand that it's very hard to come up with the fact that you can move. If you could move the unit in any direction, I think it will be more balanced. But the fact that you often you want to move the unit, but you can move it in the direction you need because Tycoon is not the right position. So because of that, I will think it's one of the weakest bands. Still definitely playable. It's not that good at all. Tempest is a lot of people are surprised by this, but I think is and I know many people disagree with me. But Tempest is actually, I think, the better band of the Breakers. I think it's very powerful. It can create situations where it seem very unfair. Of sometimes right out winning the game. I think this is how an event should be, because it's not easy to find a situation for Tempest. It's not like you can just, oh, I'm going to play Tempest and automatically give that value. You need certain board setup, but when you have that setup, Tempest can just create amazing advantage. And I think that's what events in Summer Wars should be, right? It should be very situational events that when you play them, I mean, there's a variety of event, but maybe I misspoke. I'm just saying that there's I think that's the kind of power level I look. The event needs to be very versatile, maybe not so powerful, or just be like this, like Tempest, that's not so versatile, but when it works, it just creates a lot of advantage. And I think Tempest fits that build very well. Definitely can be valued more than one magic in the right situation. Yeah, I think when it's not super great, it still produces enough value that you are fine playing it. So yeah, I think it's a balanced event, and as I say, it's not the best event, so you can know that Mind Control is going to be at the epic event. It's going to be last, and yeah, I think Mind Control is slightly weak, which for an epic event really feels kind of bad. I mean, Mind Control really feels epic in that it's a more extreme version of what it said, right? Mind Control, it's very hard to use band, but when you use it, sometimes it can win the game. Just can put a lot of pressure on warp the game. And so it feels epic. The problem, as I said, is that it's extremely situational. It's very, very hard to use. You need to play the whole game around it to merge it. But when sometimes you get in the right situation, it just wins the game. So it is a powerful event, but I will put them in slightly weak because it's so hard to find the circumstances to actually use it. So that's the Breakers, which, by the way, I'm going to spoil a little. I think it's one of the weakest event sets in the game. But still, as you see, it's a playable set. It's not great, but it's definitely playable. It's definitely good, I would say. I'm going to change the next faction. It's the Gate Goblins. The Gate Goblins, we need to start with Pylon. Pylon, I was very hard where to place it. I think Pylon is a slightly weaker band. It's, which I was considering just moving it to OP. I think it's very low here. I think Pylon requires a very specific scenario to make use of it. But in general, when you do, it's not really great value. It's very hard to get more than 2 AB from this. I mean, if it's on the same target, and really 2 AB for one card is not a great deal, especially when you had to find that situation. This is 7 I discard the most with the Gate Goblins. I was considering because of that moving to OP, but it's true that Pylon is just sometimes can add a lot of IB, and it's not that hard to find a 2 AB and maybe even 3 AB. So I don't know. I could easily move it top here on bottom of the 8 minutes. Something I want to clarify, I put all this in blue because they really want just single tire, just because it's the most cars are going to fall in the balance side. I'm going to I wanted to just split them a little, just to differentiate more the different cars there. Anyway, yes, yeah, you can convince me. It's OP, underpower. It just requires a little too much. I wish it did a little more, but it is what it is. I must wanted to move it here. I'm going to move it here because I'm really. It's just, I don't know. It's just a little hard to find value for. Yeah, I'm going to move it. Thunderpower. See, I mean, it changed my mind all the time, but it's very close. Anyway, I'm going to Sneak. Sneak is an event that I didn't appreciate much in the past. In the past, I will put it somewhere under power, but now I changed my mind to slightly weak. The reason it's so powerful is that it can save you a lot of movement, which Sneaks really need. And the fact that it has unlimited reach, unlimited... it only can target zero-cost units, that's why it's not great. And why I wish I did a little more, but the fact that it has unlimited range, like you have 5 units, you move the 5 units, and you can move one space to all sometimes units need, it can save you so much movement. And for one movement, it's quite good value. And you have it with that, in addition to that, you have the, the extra sneaks that you do, extra range, the threat, that some units can reach different spots, and you have the versatility of moving before and after. All that overall is just, I think, is strong enough to be here and balance. Still, I think it's not so great event, and that's why I think it's slightly weak. But definitely the balance zone. I wouldn't put this this event any lower like I did with Gang Up. Next one is Unrelenting. I think few people will disagree with this. I think Unrelenting is arguably one of the best events in it. Okay. Sorry about that. I'm sorry, I tried to do, one of the best events in the game. I think actually it's extremely strong. And one of the reasons Snakes is so dangerous, those Unrelenting turns where you feel like the whole turn goes to waste. Yeah, it's just very powerful. It's just true magic, but it's just not only prevents the opponent from getting magic, it prevents the opponent from activating destruction effects. It returns the card. You ensure your next turn you're going to have units to play, be either in the board or in the hand, and that security is also very powerful. I think without that, Unrelenting is extremely strong, and it's especially strong with weak units. It's OP. I think you can argue this event should cost 2 magic, but at 2 magic, I think might be a little too weak. I think it's in those scenarios where I think it should cost 1.5 magic, right? It's very hard to balance something like this. But it is what it is. It costs 1. It's very powerful, and one of the reasons that I have skipped Sneaks as a very viable deck. A lot of people really like Sneaks and think it's a very powerful deck, and I'm sure that Unrelenting is a big reason of that. Extra value, I mean, I have to say that Unrelenting is so powerful, specifically on Cave Goblins, but I think it's a decent addition to other decks. So yeah, I think it's you could convince me it's a not plus event, but I right now I feel pretty confident. And then the next event of the Goblins is Rage Core. I think is one of the strongest events of the game. It's just I put it on the left in case you don't know. I just arrange the cards from left to right in power. So this means I think Enrage the Core is stronger. And yes, I'm going to talk a little about the epics. The recent epics, you will see several epics, not Mind Control, but several epics being S power, and I think that's fine because epics are balanced more as a part of the summoner, not as an installation of the bands. So yeah, Enrage of the Horde is so strong, kind of to compensate for wait, sneaks as summoner plus starting setup, being not that powerful in a way, right? And so I think it's, despite I think it's OP, I think it's good for the game that it's OP. I think it has to be. Enrage the Core is the most important event, and Cave Goblins, and any Cave Goblins player know that you can't discard them, you have to play them. That's what makes Sneaks. The fact that you can get 3 or 4 attacks and separate attacks, like double attacks. It's not just extra AB, you can just redirect the damage, and you have no cap, have no infinite range. Everything that does the card is just pretty insane. And the fact that it works in champions that has zero cost, like Blarf, just make it a little more scary. So yeah, I mean, there's all this saying Rage the Horror is just extremely good value. It's very hard to not good value. Even if you just attack with 2 units, it might be worth playing. So yeah, there it is, the strongest band of the Cave Goblins. So going to the next, Rathalos. Rathalos, I'm going to say right now, I think has one of the weakest event sets. I'm going to explain a little why. Blood Summon, I think, is an underpower event. And I know that other people are going to find surprise by this, because when you play Fallen Kingdom, you win so many games. It's true. This is why events are very hard to value here in the tier list, because the event, it's very hard to define the line when you value the event in a vacuum and how powerful is in the deck. I think I'm in the deck. I'm not super fan of Blood Summon. I don't save it so much. I play maybe 1, but it depends a lot on the strategy and the matchup. And I agree that sometimes it just wins the game. And you can find weird that I find such an event underpower. But yeah, I'm going to explain a little that, because I think this is going to be a very controversial opinion. I think part of the reason it's playable in Fallen Kingdom is because Sacrificial Pyre. I'm going to talk a little more about that later. And the fact that the deck wants you to die to kill your own units. But yeah, I think true life force for your unit to, for paying like for a true cost common, and sometimes even 1, like it's the card, it's not good value, because you're also paying the card. So you pay the card and plus 2 magic, and then you can summon, you get that discount. But what everyone would argue is that the real power is created those change of Blood Summon, where you reach space you shouldn't. The fact that you can use it on several plays at the same time. It's not like Chant of Weaving, where you just have 1 target, you need several targets. I mean, there's a lot of for it going on. Ultimately, though, I think that you need to set up your hand very well. You need a lot of things going on. It works particularly well in the Fallen Kingdom, but overall, I think it's a weak event. I'm going to move it a little, or I'm not call. Yeah, definitely play. It fulfills the role and fulfills what in the deck. I think it's one of the problems of the deck that, as this event, as the other 2 I will show, are not very strong. And yeah, that's my opinion on Blood Summon. Despite I know this one is going to be controversial. The next one, maybe also controversial, I'm going to surprise some people here, is Porsche. I think I'm making just doing this mistake again. The Porsche is also, I think, is underpowered. Pretty much the same reason that Blood Summon. I think you have to sacrifice a unit for 2 damage. And sacrificing the unit for 2 damage is not the problem. The problem is you're also paying the card. So you're paying the card and sacrificing a unit for 2 damage, and or just sacrificing 2 units for damage. And when you have the extra cost of using the card, which is in case it's Porsche, and you need the right condition, I think the payoff is not that good. The reason Porsche it works very well. I mean, I've said in other videos, the synergy of the Fallen Kingdom is exceptional. That's what might make these events feel like they're not as weak as I think they are. But overall, it's just that powerful synergy at the event itself. And I have to consideration that's part of why the event is like that. I still wish that Fallen Kingdom Purge was a little stronger. I'm not sure I'm not going to think how we'll balance it because no point, the card is what it is. But I wish it was a little stronger. And overall, I think it's not strong enough to call it balanced, but still playable because Sacrificial Pyre and because Fallen Kingdom likes to sacrifice units. Overall, I had the cultists and whatnot. I think it's overall our power event. And yeah, to add to all this, finals Hellforce Weapon, which is in C, I think is one of the worst events in the game. It's very situational. If you think about it, there are many things I don't like about Hellforce Weapon. I mean, getting just 2 IV for a card, it's not really that good. Yes, it's permanent, but your unit kind of kills itself. If you get 2 attacks from it, it's pretty decent, but yeah, I mean, it's very hard to do that. I mean, and killing the your unit's not very. I mean, it's very random. So sometimes it doesn't kill itself. Sometimes you want to die and it doesn't die. Sometimes you don't want to die and it dies. So when you add that, it's not. I think this card could easily be +3 instead of +2. Or just be the damage to the unit could be like more consistent. In any case, I think it's a very bad event. I really don't like this. I know a lot of people really love it. And then when they play Fallen Kingdom, try to save this card very hard. I just discard it. If I use it, my way to use it is to buff the Carrier, because the Carrier with +2, that's the specific unit with +2. And 3 life, which is enough to survive most of the time. It can be very powerful, also because the cover rings protects itself from that next turn. But overall, I'm not super happy with this card. I just don't like the event, and I think it's one of the worst events of Summoner Wars right now. Yeah, and I'm going to move to the final event of Fallen Kingdom, which is the epic event. And yeah, I'm going to place it right on the top here. I think from here, and it's one of the best events in the game. It's what makes Fallen Kingdom competitive. I think that the card is pretty insane, though. Some people will argue that I think it's pretty insane because it's connected to Red Talus, right? Red Talus life is more valuable than any other life. You can change your life for a unit, which there are a few conditions with it, but still, that's a very powerful trait. And if it's true magic, you can get these easy 4 counters, and once you get to 4 counters, you're just happy with it. But the point is that sometimes you can get 6, 7, 8 counters, and suddenly the event is insane. The point is, the potential of this card is very insane. You can get like game-winning value, and even when you don't get that much value, you just get like 3 or 4 counters, you're fine with it. It's just not like, oh, I wasted the card, right? You just play it and okay. And sometimes you can put like a lot of I wouldn't say pressure, but just put the opponent in a hard position, because if they kill your units, now your units give you 1 boost. And yeah, I think it makes a lot for True Magic. It's what keeps Red Talus, in my opinion, competitive. I still I often just throw like 1 red pile without just making much. If I kill 2 units and protect my units, I found okay, I'm paid 2 magic for 2 life, and just force my opponent to not attack my units. I mean, it's not great, but it's something. But the potential that sometimes do a lot more is just what makes, I think, this card pretty insane. And what makes suddenly those other cards that sacrifice units just very playable, because you lose units, sure, but you get boost counters, more life to your summoner that can be transformed into more units. Moving on. I think what's next? Madarian to Fang Elves. Let's start with Blinding Flare. I think Blinding Flare. I didn't show the other cards. No, okay, doesn't matter. Let's move. The Blinding Flare. I think it's on the slightly weak side. I think it's on the top. I think the Flare. Again, this is going to be those. I think it's a balanced card, but it's going to be on the controversial side for many people. The reason is sometimes it feels the Flare just extremely powerful, but again, it has the trap that it's very conditional. It requires, for it to be good, you need to manipulate the wards, so the opponent basically doesn't have any other units to attack, right? And that's not easy. It asks a little too much from you. And then its ability can be ignored by abilities, by direct damage. So when you consider all that, and yeah, it's not. I mean, units can still like die with specials, and yeah, I just think that that's like the weak event. However, I still consider balance because yeah, I've seen those turns where you have Maldaria with 2 units protected by Blinding Flare, and it feels very oppressive for the opponent. I've been on both sides. It just feels a very powerful event that it's worth the 2 magic, but the fact that it needs so much work to get there is what, in my opinion, makes it like weak. And I can even put it lower than this. This is an interesting discussion, in my opinion. The next one is Burn. Burn is a very simple event, actually, to measure, because how powerful it is. Well, honestly, what's spending 1 card to do 2 damage without spending an attack is pretty good, I think. It does a little more than that, because you can do it in the move phase, which allows you to just kill something before moving, which opens paths or whatnot. Sometimes it allows you to enclosure a summoner. The only limiting factor, which is not small, is still very limited distance burn, but I think for such a powerful effect and so cheap cost, it's definitely worth it. Sometimes you can just kill a unit without having to spend a tag or a movement. I really like burn. I think it's a very powerful event. Its balance, it's very hard to like measure its power because yeah, it's just 2 damage to the unit. You need to add a little restrictions, but it's basically 1 card 2 damage. And yeah, I think that's pretty much what a card in Summoner Wars kind of looks for. An event, I mean. So yeah. The next one is Retribution, and I would say kind of the same, kind of valued, kind of the same. Burn that is somewhat easy to judge, and the reason is it basically makes 2 or 3 damage. However, because it is more conditional, right? Your opponent can decide to not attack, which sometimes we do. Your opponent can. It's not, you don't do 2 damage to whatever you want. Your opponent decides where that damage goes. So there are a lot of components for the end production that makes it significantly weaker than Burn. In my opinion, it has a little more range. I don't know, it's just overall I think it's a little too situation. I still think it's balanced, especially because it's combo with Birth of the Phoenix, but it's on the lower end of things. And yeah, that's where I place it. In fact, it's kind of like Burn. It just adds short damage, but it's weaker because you can choose, your opponent can avoid it. I mean, it just gives you less options, in my opinion. But in sometimes it's a little stronger because Spirit of the Phoenix, and because it can affect 3 units with more range. So the final, it's the epic event, which is Spirit of the Phoenix, which is going to surprise some people that I don't consider it that good. Some people really think that this event is very, very strong. I don't see it. It's very hard to make more. Let's talking like it's kind of easy to value the other events, but yeah, it's like Burn in a way, but weaker. in the sense that, again, it's not just 2 damage. You need the right units, you need the right spots. You can do more damage, you can do like 3. The power of Spirit of the Phoenix compared with Burn, it has a lot more range. The things don't need to be near Valdaria. And obviously, I think a lot of people we agree that the real power is that you can combine with effects that happen on the opponent turn, right? Like Retribution, like Vanessa, like Engage. So in that sense, I agree. I would say Spirit of the Phoenix is stronger to burn, but it's not that much stronger that I feel like a different tire. And yeah, I think it's fine. Malaria had one of the strongest abilities of the summoner. There's a very strong starting setup. So I can see why she needs to not have such a powerful epic. Still strong. I mean, it's at the top of A so far, and I think it's a balanced band. But it's maybe I expect a little more from an epic. So next one is Svara. I very love summoner this day. I'm going to start with the Glacial Shift. Just moving, forcing structures around. Glacial Shift is actually it's a balance band. It has I don't know, I was gonna put it on slightly weak, maybe. I was considering it. I think just moving 3 structures, the real power of Glacial Shift, I mean, I'm not going to get into the Ice Ram thing, I'm going to talk about Ice Ram later, but I'm trying to think of the card about on its own. I mean, obviously, its combo with Ice Ram is just insane. I'm going to talk a little about that when I get to it, but on a vacuum, the shift is actually a pretty strong event. I mean, maybe being able to move your main gate, 10 life gate, is very powerful. And just move 3 gates around is just a very powerful thing. I mean, if it's just 2 spaces, I think it's worth really the just the event and the fact that it can move. Like one, you have the most common structure, which is your golems. I feel kind of sad that the Ice Ram combo is so powerful because I think it shows a little how good the card is on its own, right? I expect with deck building, we haven't been playing much with deck building, but decks will kind of use it on its own just to move the main gate and just, I mean, you need a little more structures and the gates to be worth it, but I still think it's out. It pays off itself fine. And I feel that our Ice Ram combo is so powerful that overshadows a little the card on its own. So yeah, I wish that, for example, the card will just start to choose structures and move 3 spaces, right? So we can see more shifts without saying, oh, do I have Ice Ram? Oh no, then let's gonna save it for that round. But overall on its own, I think it's a balanced event. Ice Repair, I'm going to surprise some people, healing structures. I think it's one of the strongest events in the game. I know a lot of people are going to think, okay, I can't listen to this anymore because it's derailed. But, well, I really think that I use it a lot when I play Svara. I think just playing 1 magic to heal 2 from a golem it's completely fine. And the fact that you don't do only that, you just heal all the other structures just as a bonus. But just healing 2 the bones from the golem is often fine. Especially if, well, but that's not all it does, right? It has infinite range. And sometimes you can, and I've done it, just heal like 2. I've done it enough in 2 golems, and sometimes often 1 with an axe. And you see, it's very easy to use. I think that the fact that you can heal so much. In the worst case scenarios, you're still healing 2 damage. It's fine by itself. But you can do more, and you can do a lot more. So you can save the card, and if the situation comes, you can do a lot. And if the situation doesn't come, you just heal 2 damage to the golem, and that's fine. And that's why I think it's so strong, right? It's very versatile event, which can be very powerful. That's what makes to me Ace Repair one of the best events. I mean, I don't think it's OP, but I think it's clearly above average. I know there's going to be some people who comment, and yeah, that makes no sense, but I don't know, that's been my experience with Ice Repair. That's my opinion, after all. So Parapet, I think, following Ice Repair, I also think Parapet is a little too strong. Actually, I think people will be surprised that I don't think I think both are very close actually, but I'm going to move Parapet here. But I don't think it's OP. I think some people think Parapet is OP, but the problem with Parapet is, sure, it's not as easy as you are adding 5 life as people pretend you're a summoner or a champ. Because Parapet, first, it's very hard to place it on the right position. Then your opponent can't play around it, right? Just ignore it. Sometimes you can ignore it, but it's not just okay 5 to life. Or sometimes your opponent can just ignore it. Still, despite this, I think Fire Life is a little too tough to take. It requires too much work to take out. I think it should be more like 4 life. But yeah, I think it's one of the best events in the game. But it requires quite a bit of setup and can be played around, and it's not always so great. And also, it's just remember also this goes kind of like 2 magic, right? Because it's 1 playing it, and when it's destroyed, he gives 1 magic back. But then at that point, he had to do the 5 damage. So yeah, it's there. I still think it's not enough to be OP, but it's like it's strong. Honestly, at 4 life might be a little too. See, this is why hard to balance on Summer Wars, but yeah, I agree it's slightly too strong, but it's not enough to say it's OP in my opinion. And finally, the Ice Ram, the most loaded event of the game. I don't think it's on the OP side. I don't think it's on the OP side, but it's not that strong as Sacrificial Pyre and Rage Horde. I think on a vacuum, or not on a vacuum, because on a vacuum this event is trash. I mean, this is an event that specifically requires you to move structures, which not every summoner can do. What I mean is, I think if you ignore the double Ice Ram, when you just play an Ice Ram on its own and just you 1 Glacial Shift, I think it's just fine. I mean, it's strong, it's very strong, and that's why it's OP, but it's now super OP. This is a double Ice Ram with 2 Glacial Shift, or just 1 Glacial Shift, or 1 Ram with 2 Shift that makes it so good. On its own, yeah, I mean, with Svara and the Golems, I think it's fine. I mean, some people will argue that, yeah, you play this event and then should move 2 structures and you did 2 damage, right? And you just did 2 damage for a car, like kind of like Born, and move 2 things the way you want. And it's true that's why it's an S event. That's why I think it's OP. And it's fine, like I said, epic events can be OP, right? If the rest of the sides they are attached to a summoner, if the rest of the summoner isn't, it's slightly weak. I don't know if Svara is weak enough to warrant this strong of an event, but that's how it is. I like very strong events, though. But that's another discussion. The point is, yes, the problem is suddenly Ice Ram converts Glacial Shift into like a Mega Burn, so to speak. I mean, you play 2 Ice Rams, right? Yeah, I just things get out of control. So overall, I think Ice Ram is a very strong event, but I don't think it gets to Sacrificial Pyre on Rage to her. But I couldn't be convinced otherwise. I can convinced that Ice Ram is the best event in the game, and maybe a new tire, like maybe maybe I need to create, right, like SS just for Ice Ram. Why not? I could be convinced this is true. I may as well be. I'm just not currently convinced that this is true. I would like to play more Svara, but just not being allowed to play 2 double Ice Ram and double Shift, or maybe double Shift, and I think I will maybe rework my idea. But I think what's SS is the combination in particular when you have 2 copies of one of those cards or both copies. So for now, I'm going to leave it here. Very No confidence opinion though. So next one, it's going to be it's going to be Sarah. Yes, Sarah it is. So Sarah, surprisingly you will see. I'm going to talk about this later. I think Warden Spirit is a balanced event. I really like this event. I mean, it's very hard, very frustrating. It just can prevent a lot of damage. Guardian Spirits can just create a push that's very hard to deal with. Yeah, it can be avoided. I mean, it has a decent range. It can be avoided by many abilities and whatnot, but I don't know. I just think it's a very solid event that can be potentially very strong. I don't think this is one of the star weakness. I think this is an event that really represents very well, in my opinion, how powerful an event should be. I think it's one of the most balanced ones. It requires several things for it going, but it can be very powerful. And even when it isn't achieving peak, it's very playable. You just can throw it without much thought, and just if you just protect one or two units, it's just fine. I mean, if you protect one unit sometimes, if you get only one flank exposed, I think it can be very good. Especially if it's a paladin. Or another champion. I'm sorry. If it's what I meant to say is if it's a knight protecting a champion, but yeah. Maskill is not going to break anybody. I had this event. I think it's one of the worst bans in the game. Maybe the worst. I don't know. It's very hard to say. I think it's I still it's not a D. I mean, and people that saw me play Star, I sometimes play it. I mean, if you can heal 4 wounds, it's good, right? The problem is get to that position when you have your summoner within 2 spaces of 2 units that has 2 bounds, and you care about those units because one probably is a Citadel Archer, which you encourage to heal. So that's the problem. Like, I think if this card would have 3 range, would be a little more decent. And if it would heal 3 bounds, it will be... The problem is you can't hold this card in hand hoping that the situation comes, right? Because it doesn't have a good low of floor, like power level. Like you either heal 4 or 5 heals bounds, which is fine. Maybe you can heal more if it's adapted situation. The problem is maybe you're not and you're holding this card that does nothing. Because if you are going to only heal 2 wounds, then you're not doing a great job. I mean, you can. Sometimes I use it to heal only 2 wounds because it was a very specific paladin that it was protected, and I wanted it to. I mean, sometimes it's okay. You can heal 2 or 3 wounds and play it. But yeah, you see my point. It's very hard to get value from this card. It's very painful to hold sometimes. It's a little too expensive, an expensive deck, which I know I want to think cards in the vacuum, but yeah, I don't like this card. I think it's unplayable. I mean, if it would be unplayable, it would be a D. I have 2 tires below C for cards that are close to unplayable or unplayable. No, I don't think my skill is 1. I think it's playable, but it's very situational with very marginal gains. So usually better to hold other stuff. But there are situations to play it for sure. Renewing Help, it is an event I love, but despite I love it, I don't think it's super powerful. I used to think it was a lot better, but let's say I've learned. I think sometimes it does crazy things, but sometimes it's not really that great. I don't know. It's a very versatile event with many effects, which sometimes can really win games, and that's why it sometimes feels so strong. But sometimes I held them in hand so much, and I realized that hey, it doesn't do that much. It's still, I mean, it's the balance band. I think I really like it. I think it's allowing this 2 events. Yeah, I'm going to put our Guardian. I don't know if okay. Let's put it here. Yeah, it's very versatile event, very many uses. You know, you're paying 1 magic to the thing, and sometimes I don't know. It's not. it seems greater than it is, I think. That's still, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's there, it's very strong. Just that some people claim it's just like S, some people will say. And finally, Judgment. And I think this is going to surprise some people. I think Judgment is definitely extremely strong event. This is see something about the event's perception. Like Renew Hope, a lot of people think Renew Hope is better than Judgment, and it's going to be surprised by this because sometimes Renew Hope feels more powerful. The problem with Holy Judgment is extremely versatile. You're never like holding Judgment in hand and saying, okay, I can't find the way, but you can just play it. You just get like a few extra attacks. I mean, if you're getting like 3 extra attacks with Judgment, which is not hard at all to you, you're doing fine. You're doing it completely fine. For event, very good. But you can get a lot more. You can get 4, you can get 5, you can get even 6 sometimes. Well, if you get 6, you get so much value that the card is not. But realistically, the card aims for a 3 or 4 extra strength. And if you think about it, 3 or 4 extra strength in a card, it's quite a bit. It's quite a bit. And sometimes allows you your units to kill things that shouldn't. Like classic is the Paladin becomes a 4 attack and kills a 4 attack unit. Or you kill, we attack with that 2 attack with a 3 life and now you kill it. It really does a lot. So just 1 magic, and it puts the opponent in a situation that he needs to kill 2 units, or just you get more strength. And sometimes I've done it. Sometimes you can just make it survive 3 turns for 3 attacks. And yeah, that's pretty nice too. You need to cluster your units, and you're using more to heal with your priest, but you can still do it, and still pretty good. So yeah, I think it is a very epic event. I mean, if it doesn't notice, especially if it doesn't notice because of the versatility, like the floor is very high, and the peak is super high, and yeah, I really like it a lot. That's why sometimes I'm surprised that Serra is kind of weak, because if you see the top 3 events, they're pretty strong compared to other summoners. Well, sadly that's all that and Citadel Knight is all the deck, and that proves that you can have several cards that are very, very good, and if the rest of the deck is weak, like it happens with Serra, well, you don't have strong deck overall. I mean, Paladin is fine, but yeah, I hope you get my point. And I only have 2 decks left, and those are the Dendrorks and yeah, that's Brutal Force. Brutal Force, I think it's an ECC. I mean, I don't have to think about it. I think it's maybe worth it. I think it's better than that. Yeah, Brutal Force is an event that it just doesn't do much. The only real use from Brutal Force, honestly, is to enable Fury for Grognak, or just to kill a summoner. That's it. Sometimes to kill a champion, but it's very marginal. It's really not worth it. If you play, I mean, you need to find the right situation. I mean, the right situation sometimes it's not great. It's only really great to kill summoners. And yeah, like I said, you can use these bands. It's not useless. I'm just saying that it's very situational, just like I say. So, and yeah, I don't like Brutal Force much, but sometimes I use it, especially with Fury or just to kill a summoner. I have to say, I maybe have to show it a little. Maybe you forget what Brutal Force does. I forget that. The idea of this was to show what the card does, and I forget. I'm sorry. Hope I improve over the weeks to make videos. Friss. Friss is, I think it's a balanced event. I think again some people will be surprised because so many people don't like Friss. I mean, I'm going to put it on the bottom of a menace. Friss is a very powerful event. I think the reason many people don't value Friss is that you don't see how. I think maybe Friss needs a little more range. I don't know. How powerful effect can be in some situations, it's very hard to see, and sometimes you need to work a little for it to be really good. But it's very hard for freeze. Sometimes freeze can really just save you from a full attack, right? And if you can't use an event to stop an attack, that's a very powerful thing. But sometimes it does quite a bit more, especially against a champion. But in general, you just sometimes you can just freeze something, move forward, kill things around, and put the opponent in a very weird situation where they can't protect this unit and without exposing themselves, and then that unit will die very easily against you. It's very hard to explain without showing on the board, but what my point is, I think people already many players are great to see this, but some people are just struggling to see those plays where freeze does a lot more than it appears to. So I still think it's slightly weak, not because it, despite the way I say, because yeah, I mean those situations sometimes are hard to come by, and it's very hard to foresee those situations as to keep freezing ahead for to create a situation. So I think it's a slightly weak event, but overall, yeah, I think its potential to be that strong is just it's overall a balanced event. Maybe I would like it to have a little extra range from their summoner. Sometimes I see the play, but it's the unit I want to freeze is a little too far away from Gargan again. It just gets on my nerves. Anyway, Fury is an event very hard to gauge. I think overall it's a balanced event. The point with Fury is that really one extra attack with a summoner, especially when it has a 4 attack, it can be very powerful. Especially because you can move, you might force the summoner. So you can be 2 different targets. I mean, it has to be 2 different targets, but the point is you can just kill 2 units in a row. You can use it as escape. So that's another thing of Fury. You can just save it to escape. I mean, it's not great use. But yeah, the reason I could be convinced is more weaker than balance is that you need to risk your summoner, your mind piece to match. Sometimes that's obviously not good. And obviously it's very hard to stab because they need to be 2 different targets and not a left your summoner exposed. It really requires a lot. The problem is, and the reason I still think of the balance is that its ceiling is very high, right? If sometimes you can do just game winning moves with Fury, reach points that you shouldn't, just kill, like do a lot of extra damage, just hit and escape, and then hit something. I mean, just very high ceiling, which is a card that, I mean, if you keep in hand and you don't find that situation, you are like, okay, you can still do something with it. I think something reasonable, and I think that's what Fury very well inside. And finally, for Glory, I think I'm going to be a little, I'm going to surprise a little, I think, here again, because I think for Glory is actually balanced, but still not, like, I feel like Epic should be maybe better, but yeah, but it's a good event. I think, as you see, the best event from the Toon Orcs, but it's not that good as to, like, be even slightly strong. I think it's fine. It's just, yes, it gives you two extra attack to every common, which is very powerful. But the drawback it gives that they might die. It's, yeah, sometimes you can use it on your favor, that's why it's good. But sometimes it can be brutal. I mean, sometimes losing your Smasher, attacking and then losing your Smasher, it's not worth just the 2 extra attacks, right? And hopefully it kills itself, because if you only left with 1 life and your opponent takes that magic, it even feels worse. But yeah, doing 6 damage to yourself, it's really not cool. So yeah, I think it's good. It's just a good event. It's fast event of Sunrox, but it's not something. It's not an epic power level of a band like if you see with this 4 here. Yeah, I think that's it. And honestly, I mean, I'm going to say honest. I've been playing Tundra Orcs a lot, and the more I play, the less I like for Glory, for that same reason. Just when you attack with Smasher and it dies, it's awful. I mean, they have like 32% chance of dying. It's really awful. I don't like it at all. And for that reason, but 2 extra tag, I mean, you can get like +6 for a card, which is pretty good. And 3 different targets, which is in a way it's better. And again, killing yourself can be beneficial. Like you want the Charger to attack 4, and then just dies. That's pretty good. So yeah, the worst thing is when you attack with the Charger and it survives and it just does nothing, and then you're like, yeah, I think I'm going to say something. I think I'm sorry, I didn't show the For Glory. I should show more cards. I'm very organized. I even think that maybe some people will put the script. Maybe I would prefer For Glory would be +3 strength. I mean, it's an epic. I think it should be reflected. And I think a +3 strength maybe. I don't know. It doesn't make sense. The card it's what it is. I'm just trying to think about the power of the card. So let's go to the last one, the 7 Elves. The 7 Elves, Entangling. I think Entangling is just a balance event. I mean, I know that sometimes it feels like feels too strong because, you know, getting double shot. But I mean, when you get double switch shaft with the archer, you need to spend a boost. Right? You need to have the boost. You need to spend a boost. But yeah, I mean, gaining abilities, giving 2 units abilities, I think it's worth just 1 magic. Range is fine. You have 3 range, so it's pretty easy to entangle units. It can be very powerful, but I mean, it's not bad. It's what it needs to be. I don't think it's just crazy powerful as some people think. I think it's a pretty balanced event. Yeah, it's something like, yeah, that's, I don't know, I don't feel like saying more about it. I think Chant of Growth. What do you think? What do you think about Chant of Growth? I think it's going to be a little harder for me to think. I think Chant of Growth is it's balanced, but it's on 2 weeks. I'm going to put it in the top. The reason I like it is that, well, it has infinite range. You can play it anywhere, and it's in the move phase, so it's very easy to gain a lot of value from it. But I'm not like super happy with Chant of Growth. That's why you put it here. But you can convince me easily that yeah, I should move it here maybe. I mean, you just adding boost is very like if you had 2 or 3 boosts. I mean, if you had 3 boosts, it's pretty good value. But not that easy to do that. If you had 2 boosts for 1 card, it's just like I'm sure if you need, but it's there if you need. Like you never keep the Chant of Growth and say, oh, this is not doing anything. You just if you need to boost somewhere for some reason, you just play it and it's there, and very easy to just get 2 Dark Heads because probably the unit will be next another one at some point. So yeah, I mean this is one that can be bottom. I mean, as I said before, A is all balanced. I think everything here is balanced overall. It's just I try to split a little to just show a little more difference between some cards. But yeah, I think it's, I don't know, it just feel a little missing something, a little kind of, but yeah, maybe it's maybe mistake. It's not worth to discuss anymore. Then Chant of Wing, I think Chant of Wing is actually underpowered. This is an event that I'm never like. It was, I mean, it has its role, but it's very situational. When I say very situational, it should be interesting. But the problem is, it's not that situation. The fact if it wouldn't give boost to the unit, I mean, it just makes no sense saying that. But if that wouldn't give you boost to the unit that it gets from, it will be like definitely C. But that boost, it's an alternative use, right? Just maybe you just need to give like 2 boosts to a unit, and you can just summon from a spot. So that gives you an extra versatility plus value that makes not a C, but I don't think just being able to summon from a unit is worth the 1 magic in general. Just sometimes this is like the same type of summon. Sometimes it feels that so good because it wins the game. But I think how situational a card is very important, and you have seen that in my opinion. I think very versatile cards have more high value. This card is it's quite situational, but it can be powerful enough sometimes that it makes up for it, unlike those 3. And that's why I think it's like on B. And I think that's it. So let's talk about the last event. I think it's going to be another very controversial pick, because yeah, I think it's I think Chant of Power is slightly too strong. I don't know how people would say it. I think it's overall balance, but I don't know. I think the problem is this card is attached too strongly to the Switch Shaft, right? I mean, if you can imagine a world without Switch Shaft, this card would be maybe a lot lower. But it's part of the risk design of the card, right? That you can just double attack with it. But if you think about it, you need a 5 boost unit. It's between 3 spaces of your summoner, right? And you only get like 5 attack. That's fine for 2 magic. That's really not great value. Let's be honest. But you know, the fact that it gives the unit that double attack chance is what makes the card, and that's why I think it's slightly too strong. Because it works like that, but you can convince me I shouldn't consider that. I don't know. I think Chant of Power is the most impactful event of well, it should be. I think hopefully all epics should be like that. I don't think it's the case. But yeah, I mean, it requires too much from the player, but it does too much, right? And I think I wish Chant of Power has 2 range only. I think 3 range is too much. It's very hard to play around it. But again, the reason I didn't put it in S, honestly, is because it depends on having Switch Shot. But yeah, the problem is with Switch Shot can one shot the summoner sometimes, and that potential is what puts it, in my opinion, to slightly too strong, because you can play around it because of the 3 range. So anyway, that has been all I have to say about the entire power list of events. So you see, I think most events are very balanced. Just a handful of them are not. I wish they were a little stronger. And if for example, I wouldn't know how to buff this, but by that, but I will left it as is. And I think a little are too strong, but something I think is fine. Like I think epic events being too strong. That they're epic events. Why not? Unrelenting. I'm fine with this event. I know some people hate it, but no, it's just what I think Sneaks really needed. And I don't think it's going to be that powerful outside of Sneaks. So maybe it's not that OP, it's just OP in a deck with mostly circus units. I think it's going to be OP just playing it. I mean, it's going to be playable, but not OP like in, say, Grognak. So, I don't know. We'll see. Hope you enjoy this long video.